By 1954, many independent automakers were already dead, buried by Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. Then, two desperate companies made a bet. Nash Motors and Hudson merged in the largest corporate deal in United States history for $198 million. American Motors Corporation was born, not just to survive, but to take on the Big Three directly. And for a while, it actually worked, until greed took over. The man who took control had a radical idea. George Romney, Mitt Romney's father. But this is not about politics. Detroit was obsessed with excess. Chrome sold cars. Power sold cars. Size sold cars. The Big Three spent millions convincing Americans they wanted bigger, heavier, flashier machines. Romney looked at all of that and asked one question. Why? Why does a car need to be 18 feet long to carry 6 people? Why are we building cars that do not fit in garages? The Big Three called him crazy, but Romney understood something they had forgotten. Think about the average American family in 1954. 2 or 3 kids, 1 income. They needed a car for groceries, church on Sunday, maybe a vacation once a year. They were not trying to impress their neighbors. They were trying to pay their bills. And that is exactly who Romney built cars for. But AMC had a serious problem from day one. They were undercapitalized, a fraction of what Detroit's giants could spend. So every decision mattered. Every single dollar had to count. Nash had already planted the seed before the merger, the Rambler, a compact car with unit body construction, frame, and body built as one piece. Lighter, more efficient, smoother than it had any right to be for its size. And it was about to change everything. An inline 6, 82 horsepower. That does not sound like much, but it was plenty for highway driving, and it got 25 to 30 miles per gallon. Half the weight of a full-size car, the same number of passengers. Romney made the Rambler AMC's entire strategy. No full-size cars. No competing with General Motors on their terms. AMC would own the compact market nobody else wanted. The Big Three laughed. Compact cars were for poor people. Then October 1957 hit. The stock market dropped. Unemployment spiked. Family budgets collapsed. America was in full recession. Suddenly, those 18-foot Cadillacs looked foolish sitting in driveways nobody could afford to fuel. Chrysler's full-size sales dropped 43% in a single year. General Motors dealers were slashing prices just to move inventory. People who bought those giant cars a year earlier were underwater on their loans. Rambler sales exploded by 58%. Waiting lists stretched for weeks. By 1961, AMC was selling 370,000 Ramblers a year, 6.1% of the entire US car market. Two desperate companies that merged to survive were now America's third largest automaker, and it was not luck. Romney's advertising called Detroit's big cars gas-guzzling dinosaurs. Americans laughed at General Motors' finned monsters and bought Ramblers instead. Farmers bought them because they would run 200,000 miles on basic maintenance. Taxi companies bought them because they never broke down. The Kenosha plant built one thing and built it extremely well. Ford's annual advertising budget at one point exceeded AMC's entire revenue, and AMC was still winning. By 1962, the company was generating $392 million in annual sales, with $70 million in cash reserves, enough to fund new models, upgrade facilities, and expand the dealer network. AMC had done the impossible. They had forced the Big Three to follow. Ford developed the Falcon. Chrysler scrambled to build the Valiant. General Motors executives were privately worried. The company nobody believed in had won. Then, in February 1962, George Romney resigned. He was running for governor of Michigan. His replacement was Roy Abernethy, American Motors Corporation's head of sales and a marketing man. Abernethy looked at American Motors Corporation's success and saw failure. He saw 6.1% market share, while General Motors had 50%. He saw compact cars when Americans were buying muscle cars. He saw a company that was profitable but small when it could be huge. What happened next destroyed everything Romney built. In 1963, Abernethy approved a massive expansion of the AMC Ambassador. The car grew to over 200 inches long, longer than a Chevrolet Impala. It was exactly what Rambler customers did not want. They had bought Ramblers because they were efficient and practical. The Ambassador was neither. Rambler customers took one look and asked what had happened to the company they loved. Then they went and bought Chevrolets. Then came the Marlin in 1965. This car perfectly captures how far AMC had fallen. Ford had just launched the Mustang. Compact, sporty, affordable. It created an entirely new market segment. Ford sold 418,000 Mustangs in the first year. Abernethy decided AMC needed its own Mustang, so they built the Marlin, a fastback coupe on the mid-size classic platform, a 327 V8 option, producing 270 horsepower. It should have competed with the Mustang. It did not. The Mustang was 181 inches long. The Marlin was 195 inches. The Mustang weighed 2,800 pounds. The Marlin weighed 3,300 pounds. The Mustang felt nimble and fun. The Marlin felt like someone grafted a fastback roof onto a family sedan. That was exactly what AMC had done. AMC built 10,327 Marlins in 1965. Ford sold 559,451 Mustangs that same year. But Abernethy was not done. The Javelin, the AMX, the Matador Coupe. Expensive, poorly timed projects chasing markets AMC had no business entering. Every dollar spent chasing the big three was a dollar not spent improving the Rambler. The cars that actually made money got neglected. AMC salesmen had been trained to sell efficiency and value. Now they were supposed to pitch power and size to customers who came in specifically because they did not want that. Many dealers gave up. Some started steering customers toward imports. In 1961, AMC held 6.1% of the US market. By 1967, AMC held 2.4%. 2/3 of their customers were gone in 6 years. In 1967, AMC posted a $12.6 million loss. The company generating healthy profits 5 years earlier was now hemorrhaging money. Warranty claims increased. Dealers complained about fit and finish. The reputation Romney carefully built was crumbling. The board forced Abernethy out in 1967. The company was weeks away from bankruptcy. Roy Chapin Jr. took control in January 1967 and faced an impossible situation. $8 million in cash reserves, barely enough to cover 2 months of operations. Developing a new car took 3 to 4 years. He did not have 3 years. Most leaders taking over a failing company would cut costs, fire employees, sell assets, and manage the decline. Chapin understood AMC could not cut their way to survival. They had to build their way out. The 1960s were ending. Toyota and Honda were setting up dealerships across America. Volkswagen was selling Beetles by the hundreds of thousands. The import invasion was just beginning, and AMC had one chance to grab that market before it disappeared forever. April 1st, 1970. AMC launched the Gremlin. It was built in 18 months and cost $6 million to develop. While the Big Three were still conducting market research, AMC was shipping cars to dealers. The design began on the back of an airline sick bag. Chief stylist Richard Teague was on a Northwest Airlines flight. He grabbed the bag, flipped it over, and sketched the Gremlin right there. His concept was brilliant in its simplicity. Use the Hornet's front end, doors, dashboard, and running gear, all already in production, and design a new rear section. That was it. By using existing parts, AMC avoided the massive tooling costs that killed other small manufacturers. The car seated 4 and had decent cargo space with the rear seat folded. The inline 6 produced 128 horsepower, and it got 20 miles per gallon in mixed driving. It cost $1,879, the cheapest new car in America. Automotive journalists called it ugly. Analysts said it would damage what little remained of AMC's reputation. Then came 1973, the oil crisis. Gas prices more than doubled overnight. Lines formed at gas stations. Some stations ran out completely. Suddenly, the weird-looking Gremlin was the hottest car in America. Between 1970 and 1978, AMC sold 671,475 Gremlins. A car that cost $6 million to develop generated $1.3 billion in sales. The Gremlin kept AMC alive. In 1975, AMC launched the Pacer. This was supposed to be even more revolutionary. It featured a wide body design for maximum interior space, a massive glass area for visibility, and it was designed around a compact rotary engine licensed from General Motors. Then, General Motors canceled the rotary engine program. AMC scrambled. They shoved their inline 6 into a car designed for a smaller, lighter engine. That threw off the weight distribution. It ruined the handling. And fuel economy that was supposed to hit 30 miles per gallon barely managed 18 miles per gallon. The Pacer still sold 280,000 units in its first 2 years. Buyers loved the space and visibility, but it was not the revolution AMC needed. It was a compromise. AMC was running out of room for compromises. The Gremlin and Pacer kept AMC alive on shoestring budgets. Even when sales doubled to $2 billion in 1974, profit margins were paper thin. By 1976, AMC was losing $46 million a year, selling cars and still bleeding out. The innovations were there. The customers were there. But AMC had been so badly damaged by the Abernethy years that even brilliant products could not fully heal the wound. The Gremlin cost $6 million to develop, and it generated $1.3 billion in revenue, a 217-to-1 return. The Pacer sold 280,000 units despite never getting the engine it was designed for. The cars were not the failure. The boardroom was. AMC's board paid dividends to shareholders instead of investing in product development. They bought back stock instead of designing the Gremlin's replacement. By 1975, the Gremlin was 5 years old with no successor in development. The Pacer had proven there was demand for innovative small cars, but AMC had no money to build more. But Chapin made one decision that would outlast AMC itself. In 1970, he bought Chrysler Jeep for $70 million. Chrysler had run Jeep into the ground with poor management and deferred maintenance, but the brand itself was golden. The CJ5 was a legend. The Wagoneer had practically invented the luxury SUV segment. And the deal came with U.S. defense contracts, a stable cash stream AMC desperately needed. Chapin saw what nobody else did. Jeep was not just an off-road vehicle brand. It was a lifestyle brand that could generate profits for decades. The Cherokee launched in 1974 and created a market segment that did not even have a name yet. By 1975, Jeep was generating more profit per vehicle than AMC's passenger cars. The brand was growing while everything else at AMC struggled. But AMC's board treated Jeep like a sideline, a profitable niche product, while the real business was passenger cars. They invested just enough to keep Jeep competitive, never enough to fully exploit what they had. Meanwhile, Ford was watching. Chrysler was watching. They all saw what Jeep could become. They just had to wait for AMC to get desperate enough to sell. By 1979, AMC's passenger car market share had fallen to about 2%. They did not have the capital to develop competitive front-wheel drive, fuel-injected economy cars like the Japanese were building, like Chrysler's K cars. They made $83 million in profit that year. That sounds healthy, but it was not. A 2.7% margin, when you need 5% to survive, is not profit. It is a slow bleed. Then came 1980. AMC lost almost $200 million. Recession and inflation crushed demand. U.S. vehicle production fell from 8.4 million units to 6.4 million. Banks refused to lend AMC more money. Unlike Chrysler, AMC was not too big to fail. There were no federal loan guarantees, no bailout, nothing. AMC could not survive alone, and that is when Renault showed up. In 1979, Renault approached AMC. First, a $90 million loan. Then something much bigger, fresh capital for product development, access to European technology, shared resources to compete with the big three. On paper, it made perfect sense. But Renault did not want a partner. They wanted a manufacturing platform, a dealer network, and access to the one thing AMC owned that was truly valuable, Jeep. Renault took a 22% stake in AMC. In return, AMC got capital. What they gave up was everything else. Renault executives took board seats, veto power over major decisions, and control of product planning. And because Renault was state-owned and foreign, AMC lost access to U.S. defense contracts, the stable revenue stream that had helped keep them alive. If AMC had turned down the money, bankruptcy would have been certain. If they accepted, they would surrender control. Both options were terrible. They took the money. Renault did deliver some good. They helped fund the Jeep Cherokee XJ, one of the most important sports utility vehicles ever built. They brought modern European engineering technology. But Renault also took control of AMC's product pipeline immediately. Instead of developing next-generation Jeeps, AMC's resources were diverted to adapting French cars for the American market. The Renault Alliance launched in 1983, a French-designed subcompact, built in Kenosha and sold through AMC's dealers. Motor Trend named it Car of the Year. Affordable, fuel efficient, reasonably equipped. For about 5 minutes, it looked like the partnership was working. 6 months after launch, the Alliance started breaking. Electrical systems caught fire. Engines seized. Windows would not roll up. Heaters stopped working. Cars that seemed solid at 10,000 miles turned into rolling disasters after 20,000. Consumer Reports rated it one of the worst cars they had ever tested. Dealers were spending more time fixing Alliances than selling new ones. In 1983, 142,000 units were sold. In 1984, 104,000. In 1985, 67,000. In 1987, 23,000. The Car of the Year became a punchline in 4 years. The problem was fundamental. Renault engineers designed the Alliance for European conditions, smooth highways, and temperate climates. American roads were rougher. American temperatures ranged from Arizona heat to Minnesota cold. Quality control processes that worked in French factories did not translate to Kenosha, and Renault executives refused to acknowledge it. They blamed AMC's manufacturing. They blamed American workers. They blamed everyone except their own design. By 1987, AMC was losing over $100 million a year. Jeep was still profitable. The Cherokee XJ was proving itself. The 4.0-liter inline-6 was becoming the engine everyone wanted. But Alliance losses wiped out Jeep's profits, and then some. Renault was bleeding money in Europe too. The strategic partnership had become a financial disaster for both sides. Renault needed an exit, preferably one that did not involve bankruptcy courts and angry American workers on the evening news. March 1987. They found one. Chrysler Corporation, fresh off Lee Iacocca's turnaround, needed manufacturing capacity and new market segments. AMC's board learned about the deal after it was essentially done. They faced two options: sell to Chrysler or face bankruptcy. They sold. Chrysler was not rescuing a struggling American automaker. They were buying Jeep. Everything else came free. March 9th, 1987. The press conference. All smiles and handshakes. Iacocca talks about synergies and combined strengths. Reporters ask about the alliance and the Kenosha plant. Everyone is polite. Everyone is optimistic. Everyone is lying. Within 18 months, the AMC name disappeared completely. It was folded into Chrysler's Jeep Eagle division. The Kenosha plant closed in June 1988. 5,500 workers lost their jobs. The plant had been building cars since 1902.